Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q1 FY22 earnings conference call of Khadim India Limited, hosted by Nirmal Bang Equities Private Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star and 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Girish Pai from Nirmal Bang Equities. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Pai.
On behalf of Nirmal Bang Institutional Equities, I welcome you all to the interaction with the management team of Khadim India Limited to discuss the 1Q FY22 results. We have with us Mr. Siddharth Roy Burman, Chairman and Managing Director, Ms. Namrata Chotrani, Chief Executive Officer, and Mr. Indrajit Chaudhary, Chief Financial Officer. Without further ado, I will hand over the floor to the Khadim management to make their opening comments, after which we will open the floor for Q&A. Over to you, Mr. Burman.
Okay. Namaskar, and we welcome you to our conference call to discuss the first quarter results of the financial year 21-22. Hope everyone continues to be safe, and I would like to start off by appreciating the relentless effort of our COVID warriors. After having most of our store network open in Q4 FY21, we saw footfalls recover to the pre-pandemic levels. Unfortunately, the encouraging trend was halted by the emergence of the second wave. The lockdowns following the second wave led to closure of stores from April to May, and we reopened some stores in late June. However, the impact on business was not as severe as what we saw in Q1 FY21, as we were better prepared this time. Our strategic initiatives throughout the pandemic, like store calibration, raw materials, and inventory management, have all helped ease the impact of lockdown in Q1 FY22. Hence, we saw considerable improvement year on year in the terms of revenue and margins. Retail business has stayed at good recovery, and distribution business continues to do well. We have uploaded a comprehensive presentation explaining our business model and summarizing our results. Hope you had a chance to get through the same. Coming to our performance for Q1 FY22 on a year-on-year basis, compared to Q1 FY21, the total revenue increased 46% from 60.4 crores to 88.2 crores. The revenue from retail segment is up 75% from 22 crore to 38.7 crore. The revenue from distribution segment increased 26% from 39.8 crore to rupees 50 crores. Gross margin saw significant improvement from 41.4% to 43.7%. EBITDA loss has narrowed down 36 lakhs from 14.2 crore. Khadim India is committed to maintain the highest standard of hygiene and safety in our store. Most of our company staff members have now been vaccinated, and we are also taking steps to vaccinate staff in stores. It gives me immense joy to announce that we will be shifting our corporate office to a new modern premises next month. We thank everyone for this support and look forward to delivering value to all stakeholders. Namaskar.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Ketan Shankar from Trustline PMS. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks a lot for the opportunity. So firstly, wanted to understand, have you seen any sharp recovery in July and August months in terms of footfalls and billings for retail?
So Mr. Shankar, thanks for your question. So yes, the recovery has been better compared to last year for sure, because then people are more adept with handling COVID and managing themselves and keeping them secure, but yet coming out and shopping. So the recovery has been pretty good to the extent of 75 to 80%.
Okay. And have you taken any price increase during Q1 and Q2 of this year? And also, are we seeing any early trends of customer moving up to higher valued products?
So the price increases, yes, we have taken in the distribution segment and retail segment. Retail we have not taken particularly in Q1 itself, but the price increases that we have taken sometime late last year, they have started having impact in Q1. And distribution, yes, we have taken price increases in Q1 and Q2 across various categories of products. In terms of what was your second question?
Are we seeing any early trends of customer moving to higher value products?
So yes, there is premiumization definitely happening in terms of the sub-brands as a percent of sales. We are constantly seeing an improvement. Just to give you a perspective, the sub-brand as a percent of sales in Q1 FY22 has been 55% versus 51% the previous 2 years in the first quarter. So we are definitely seeing premiumization in products. There is normalization in buying compared to last year. Last year there was more focus on buying the low price products, home-based products, but now there's normalization coming in buying, which we are seeing in the merchandise category-wide sales and of the sub-brands-wide sales. So there is an improvement.
Okay. And lastly, we were talking about launching a new range of products for this distribution segment. So has it already launched, and how has been the response for distribution performance?
Yes, we have launched new products, and as in fact early this month, we had a distribution meet where there was a good response of the products. I think as we speak right now, the sales for the festival have just about started in the distribution segment. So we are hopeful for getting good response. We are continuously improvising on our products. As we had said last time, we are investing in people as well, who will help us create this kind of product range. And so we are seeing a very good improvement, and we're getting a good response from our distributors as well in terms of their feedback.
Okay. Thanks a lot, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Monica Arora from Share Giants Wealth. Please go ahead. As the participant left the queue, we will move to the next question, which is from the line of Naitik Modi from OHM Portfolio. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. 2 questions. One is, could you share the volume numbers for FY21 for both retail as well as distribution?
Sorry, can you repeat the question here a bit?
Could you please,
and can you be a bit louder if you don't mind, please?
Volume numbers for FY21 for both retail as well as distribution?
FY21 or Q1?
Yeah, FY21.
Can I get back to you on this, shortly, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's okay. And second question is on what would be the gross margins for our non-Khadim brands, and what would it be for Khadim?
Generally, the margin for non-Khadim is the mother brand is slightly 2% lesser than the sub-brands. Hello?
Okay, so what would that be? What would the number be?
sub-brand margin would be in the range from 52 to 55%, and in Khadim it is 48 to 50%.
All right, fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, please press star and one now. The next question is from the line of Monica Arora from Share Giants Wealth Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity. So due to the pandemic, we are seeing that a lot of brands are offering discounts basically to pull customers. So just wanted to understand how is the situation with us. Are we also offering discounts to pull customers? Can you throw some light on that?
Thanks for your question, Monica. Yes, we are offering discounts, but it is mainly from a two-pronged perspective. One, as you rightly said, customers are looking for deals right now, and it possibly is more of a strategy to get footfalls in more than it's a marketing tactic more than a business tactic. But having said, it's also helping us liquidate the older stock, which is in our system. So it's helping us, in both the ways. It's not coming at the cost of, severe gross margin impact also. So I think it's pretty okay as of now.
Okay. And are we also we see in various brands, they are having a different category for online segments and different category for their on-store sales. So are we also having this kind of arrangement for our online sales?
Yes, we are having. So we have, I think as you've said in the last couple of calls, we have omnified all our stores, what this basically means is that any customer who walks into our store, if there's unavailability of size or color of the choice, it is delivered to them from the closest possible store in the next few days, number one. Number two is also we are proactively reaching out to our loyal customers and possibly servicing them in terms of sales, reaching out to them in terms of digital catalogs and, also their the WhatsApp links to be able to encourage them to buy online. So we are seeing a good amount of impact over there. Secondly, as putting the online orders of our website and Myntra orders and some of the other websites through the through the stores as well. So we are using our stores in a more effectively helps reduce your logistic cost, improvises on your working capital efficiency, and also customer delight.
Okay. And like we are present on Myntra, Amazon. Could you name other portals also where we are present?
So we are present on all the marketplaces. We're present on Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, Ajio. We're present across. The point is that many of the marketplaces are not as have not developed some parts of the omnification, because of which we've not gone ahead and omnified them as well. We've omnified where the marketplaces have the infrastructure and the tidbits to manage the entire returns and the forward sales effectively.
Okay. And it's right in the previous quarter you mentioned that your e-commerce sales has been the highest. E-commerce sale has been highest in the company's history. So does that remains the same for this quarter as well? And also, if you can throw some light on what is our strategy going forward for the online business, and how, because once we are selling online,
Hello?
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Monica Arora, we cannot hear you. Your voice is breaking, ma'am. Can you please check?
Hello?
As there is no response from the line of the participant, we'll move to the next question.
Just a minute. Mr. Naitik Modi, there was a question on the volume sale. So I'm giving the answer: 70 lakhs for retail and 2.95 crore for distribution.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, to ask a question, please press star and one. The next question is from the line of Amit Ketan from Laburnum Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. So my question is from a slightly longer term perspective. So if I look at your gross margins, that's been at the corporate level around 35%. And we have a mix of both retail and distribution business. Now, if I look at your listed peers, both Bata and Relaxo, they have gross margins of around 55-56%. So what is the reason for this difference, and how do we see our gross margins going forward over the next, say, 5 years?
Okay. Thanks for your question. Appreciate it. So I think on the retail side, just to give you a perspective, our our company-owned outlet gross margin is very much comparable to the rest of the retail companies that you see in the country. Just to give you a perspective, in our company-owned outlets, we have a gross margin currently around 53.4%. The reason that you're seeing a balanced or a lower average retail margin is purely because we have a substantial EBO a franchisee business, which we have to leave some money on the table for them. That's the EBO margin, so that it's a commercial commercial viable proposition for them to run their business. So that margin, when we move out from remove from the 53.4% approximately, which is also increasing year-on-year basis, that's why the average margin reduces. But that does not mean our product margin is not comparable to the industry. On the distribution side, we have a margin of approximately just around 36%. Yes, it is relatively lower compared to the competition, that's Relaxo today, but I think we are creating the kind of products, and also we are working on the entire premiumization to ensure that we will bridge the gap hopefully in a couple of years.
Sure. But if we have a higher franchisee business, I understand your point regarding lower margins and leaving some margins on the table for the franchisee. But that would also mean a lower working capital, which is not the case for us. So just trying to understand, is it a matter of scale? Is it something else because of which we have a worse working capital than our peers?
What makes you believe that working capital is not efficient enough? I think we're running almost, in terms of inventory, our target is almost 3.5 months of inventory on a normalized basis. Looking at the working capital as on today or last year will be incorrect purely because the sales have dropped pretty substantially. But on a normalized basis, the inventory is approximately 3.5 months. Our franchisee or our franchisee and distribution outstandings have reduced, and they're in the range of almost 30 to 45 days. So, and creditors are in the range of around 65 days. So I think we're normalized. We're working on a very healthy working capital cycle.
Got it. Okay. And second question is on your advertising strategy. So I think a couple of years back you hired a few celebrities, and you stepped up advertising in FY19 and 20 from what historically it had been much lower. And so how is it going to be going forward? Are you going to spend more to build the brand, or are you going to step down advertising given the current situation?
So I think right now the endeavor for all of us is to ensure that our fixed cost is at the minimal, or we are trying to minimize our fixed cost. That doesn't mean necessarily we will reduce advertising. I think it's a function also of sales. Once sales does scale up, we will definitely look at spending much more. Right now, we are dabbling and experimenting very heavily with digital media and social media, which in our view has had a decent impact. We're also looking at regional stars to be able to promote the brand because we have a good amount of eastern and southern presence. So we are dabbling with the regional stars, which also we have seen has been given us a good response. The idea is to look at it from an ROI perspective. We're very ROI focused to see that whatever spend we are doing is giving us the requisite sales.
Understood. So from a longer term perspective, I understand that near term may be a little, you may not want to spend a lot, but from a longer term perspective, could you give some sense of, as a percentage of sales, how much do you intend to spend on ASP?
Yeah, around the idea will be to spend around 2 to 3%.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, please press star and 1. Ladies and gentlemen, to ask a question, you may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Girish Pai from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the answers you'd given last quarter when we had a similar call regarding going back to a 10% EBITDA margin. I suppose this is pre-Ind AS 116. When do you think we can see this at the earliest, and what are the elements that are going to drive this forward? How much more increase in gross margins are you looking at, and where do you see the other expenditure kind of compressing to? How do you think the dynamics are going to kind of play out from that standpoint? So one is, when do you see this happening the earliest, and what are the elements that are going to change to shift that to a 10% number?
Girish, thanks for your question. Appreciate it. So I think the shortest answer I can give you is as fast as the footfall and the COVID impact normalizes. So the kind of work that we have done in terms of improvising on the gross margins, reducing the fixed costs, working on trying to improve the working capital efficiency. We are very confident that once the footfall normalizes, would impact, we are very confident of reaching that number.
Yes, we require 1 year without lockdown.
Okay.
Even if we have a few quarters going forward with a reduced impact of the lockdown, I think we should be able to reach similar numbers. Just to give you a perspective, if you see the current numbers as well, we have been able to reach with a 88 crore of sales versus a 60 crores last year, we've been able to minimize the EBITDA impact from 14 crores to 36 lakhs of loss. So that itself should possibly give you a perspective on the impact of the efforts that you've taken in terms of, trying to reduce the sales required to ensure equilibrium in terms of
break-even.
The break-even in terms of profitability.
Okay. In terms of working capital, last quarter you had shared some numbers regarding how various numbers had kind of moved on the working capital side. Would you be able to share how those numbers have moved as we speak now?
In case of debtors, the numbers from June last year was 106.42. It is 121.75. It's mostly increased because of the institutional sale that we done in March. From 38, it has increased to 76. But if you consider the franchisee and the distribution, the franchisee was at 32 crores level, which has come down to 18 crores, and the distribution, which was at 29 crore level, has come down to 19 crores. In terms of inventory, last year we were at 157 crore of inventory at June 30th, first quarter. Now we have 155 crore of inventory as on 30th 6/2021.
But I mean, given the fact that this quarter we're hoping for a good festive sales, there will be an increase in our outstandings in the next couple of months. That's purely the way the business works, and which will tone down again in end of Q3.
Okay. On the retail side, since franchising is such a big part of your business, can you just throw some light on the franchisee economics? Is it a cash and carry model, and what is the kind of investment that a typical franchisee does from both a capex and an inventory standpoint, and what kind of average returns does a franchisee make in a normal year? Not so much in FY21 or even 1Q of FY22, but a normal year. What kind of returns does a franchisee kind of make, and what is the typical average revenue? What is the revenue per average franchisee versus for a COCO store? How does it kind of compare?
See, in case of a franchisee, the square feet required for a typical store is around 700 square feet, and the franchisee require a capex of around 15 lakhs. and the stock requirement is around 10 to 12 lakhs. So a franchisee gets a margin of around 30% from MRP, and we have seen the return on investment is around 23 to 24% in a span of 3 to 4 years. The return of franchise is higher in Bengal and eastern part of the country. It's in southern and the western part of the country. So we have seen this year we are expecting around 75 to 80 franchisees to be opened this year.
Okay. I'll go back into the queue and I'll come back later.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, you may please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Nikita from Galaxy Investment. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to understand what is the situation on our store, like a number of stores which are opened or operational now, and also what is your the rent? Are you paying the full rent for those shops, or is there some concession or discount given?
We now at present all our stores are open, means partially, or 5 days in a week. We have 220 COCO outlets. All are open. Maybe in some weekends there is a closure in Odisha and Northeast. And in terms of rental concession, last year we got a savings of around 7.8 crores. This year also we have negotiated with the landlord. Till now we have got saving of around 4 crores. We are hopeful that we will be able to reach the same number that we have done in FY21. Hello?
Ms. Nikita, is your question answered? Ms. Nikita, can you please unmute yourself from your handset and go ahead? As there is no response from the participants, we'll move to the next question. Before that, a reminder to the participants, to ask a question, you may press star and 1 on your touchtone telephone. The next question is from the line of Naitik Modi from OHM Portfolio. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks again. Coming back to the volume sale number that you just shared, with respect to the retail numbers, is at 70 lakhs, right?
Yes.
So then if I divide it by, if I try to derive the retail realization, it comes around 412 rupees, which is a 16% rise over last year. Is that correct?
Our ASP last year, you were telling of ASP for FY21?
Correct. For retail.
Okay. Hi, it's more or less correct.
Okay, and what has led to this huge jump in realization growth?
Because of the premiumization that we have done and other impact is the increase of sub-brands.
Okay, and is this sustainable, or with higher volumes this might taper down?
No, it's in FY21, while there is a pandemic, if we are able to increase the ASP, in normal year we will be able to carry on that thing.
Okay, so you think might sustain with volumes growing?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to ask a question, you may press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Monica Arora from SGW Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my line got disconnected. So I was asking a question upon how is the quarter, how is in the previous quarter, like you said, that the e-commerce sales were highest in the company's history. So how are you seeing the sales now through e-commerce especially, and what would be your strategy going forward on the online business, and how can it affect your on-store sales?
So Monica, I think the last time when we spoke, we had said that our target is to ensure that our online online come omni business will reach around 4 to 5%. We are pretty much on that number right now. We are around 4% of our, at least in the first quarter, we are around 4% of the business is coming from e-commerce and omni business, number one. Number two, we definitely want to grow the e-commerce and the omni business, but I think we are very cognizant that we want to ensure that we're doing it in a profitable manner. If we want to grow the e-commerce business substantially, we can do that very well, but that may come at a substantial cost, which we do not want to take. So I think the idea is to grow it in a constructive and a profitable manner, and that's something which we will continue working on, and you will see that the numbers will continue and sustain in this way.
And any strategy on your stores, if you are planning to open some new stores, basically capex plan, I want to ask, like in going forward in 1 or 2 years.
So I think this year the idea is to currently consolidate our CEOs, which is I think we have been trying to reduce the number of underperforming stores. So I don't think we are looking at opening more COCOs this year unless and until it's a very awesome area which will start giving us a profit from the first 6 months itself. But I think in terms of franchisee, as Indranil mentioned earlier, we are looking at opening out 25 to 80 stores in this financial year. And in terms of capex, next year I think we'll be also looking at opening around 10 to 15 stores, which company-owned outlets, which will possibly be a capex of approximately around 3 crores. And the balance there will be a capex for also the factory for our distribution business. So total capex will be in the range of 10 to 15 crores.
Oh, yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Girish Pai from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Yeah. The online margins, I just wanted a sense of how they are, and what if you mentioned about 4% is coming from Omni? How much is it from if you have your own web store, how much is it from there, and how much is from a third-party store, third-party online store? And what is the kind of margins you're making there right now? Or do you think, had things been normal, would they have been equal to the 10% number, or how much lower would they have been lower by compared to the aspirational 10% margin that you kind of look at?
So I think the breakup of the sales channels, I think on the website and the platform, that we can give it to you offline, Girish. In terms of the margins, I think it will be lesser than 10%. Please appreciate that we are not a very high ASP or a high price brand. When it comes to logistic cost, it comes to approximately purely because of the ASPs that we are dealing in. The logistic cost is on the higher side, which can almost go 20%. So we are not really, it's not 10%, below 10%, but we are looking at ensuring that we are able to get to the ideal 10% number, which is what we make in the offline sales.
And is the assortment online, how different is it from the offline store? I don't know whether this question is asked. How different or same is it compared to the offline store?
So the range is similar to the offline store, except for the fact that we have reduced some of the very low price products, which is not commercially viable to sell online. Given that the logistic cost, the commissions, the marketing cost, the returns, and also the other agency costs, it's not viable to sell very low price products. So we have put a certain benchmark, and that depends, that's different from the various marketplaces and the various platforms depending on the cost structure with all of them. But we have an e-commerce exclusive line as well, which we don't obviously service through our offline stores, which is only meant for online sales.
Okay. There is talk of an IPO or IPOs from two, three footwear players in the next 6 to 12 months, and you know the names that are floating around. Have you seen any kind of extra aggression from them in the market wherever you're present, on the ground?
Actually, most of these names that you're talking about, they're not very strong in the markets that we are, and vice versa. So I think we're not seeing it as much over here. Maybe you can ask the other listed competitors; they'll possibly be able to give you a better perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask a question now. The next question is from the line of Naitik Modi from OHM Portfolio. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks again. You spoke about expanding or adding on to franchisees and COCO stores. So what regions are we specifically looking to add these stores?
We're looking at adding these stores in the east and the southern markets, wherever there is option for penetration. Because in the southern markets, there's still significant chances of penetration. But at the same time, we're also looking aggressively on the northern and the central markets.
Okay, so when you are adding new stores in east, where do you think, as per your internal analysis, is that whereby you feel that, okay, we've reached sort of saturation within the eastern markets because that's your strongest market?
You're asking when do you think we'll reach saturation?
I mean, what is the max out limit, so to say, in terms of number of stores for you?
I think it's very difficult to comment on it in terms of which are the max out stores, because there are newer markets opening up on a year-on-year basis in various of the states. But having said that, I think we're not only looking at larger franchises, we're also looking at smaller franchises which are nothing but branded outlets, where the investment also is smaller and the product range also is a mix of our retail and distribution business, so as to make it affordable for the franchisee to sell to the target audience in that area. So I think there is, in my mind, given the kind of flexibility models that we're dealing with, there's enough penetration left in the east and southern markets as well. There's entire Seven Sisters also there, where there's also enough penetration left. So to be frank, I hope we don't reach the level of saturation ever. But that's the ideal scenario. But I think there's enough space left, both in retail and distribution.
Okay. And in terms of your regional expansion, how are the north and western regions playing out for you? I mean, are they profitable at the operating margin level?
Some of them are, some of them are not. It's subjective. So the ones who are not, we're taking a call to continue with them on a strategic basis, because we need the brand presence from an expansion standpoint. But the feedback, the interest that we're getting from the northern markets in terms of franchise expansion, I think has been great. There's a lot of awareness of the brand in the northern markets, because we have a lot of the target audience which has moved across the country. And also, the kind of product range and the price points that we are dealing with, the kind of range that we are dealing in on the retail side is for the entire family, for all the occasions. A lot of the brands that you see across the country, they not necessarily have the entire range at the kind of price points that we are dealing with. And a lot of the brands which have a larger range don't have the kind of price points. So I think we have a good mix. Our product offering is very good, and there's a lot of interest coming in. Because mind you, the kind of economic scenario that we are in right now in terms of disposable income, people are very happy to see affordable fashion footwear. So the demand has been, and the interest from the franchisees and the customers wherever we have opened back. As we speak, in last two weeks back, we opened a store in Delhi. I think we've got great response in the market, and we are expanding aggressively. We are making a plan to expand aggressively there as well. So I think the response has been great.
Okay. And for us as a company, which is a more, or rather, which is a ROC accretive or higher ROC business? Is it the franchisees or is it the COCO model?
If you see, if you compare both of them, it's more or less same. The margin we derive from franchisee and the EBITDA from the store level more or less comes to same. What happens is in COCO we have a capex investment, and in case of franchisee we don't have a capex investment.
Right. So the capital employed in COCO would be higher as compared to franchisees. Is that correct?
Franchisee there is no capital employed. It's only the working capital.
Exactly, the working capital employed there.
So in terms of the profitability, it is similar to the mature stores. In terms of ROI, as Indri said, we are better off. I mean, the franchising model is obviously better.
So that's why in normal year when we open shop, means we open around 15 to 20 COCO and around 70 to 75 franchises. So there is a 3:1 ratio of opening the store.
So what is the strategy? What is the strategy there in terms of why have two models? Why not have one model? I mean, what's the thought process behind having?
For penetrating the brand in the newer markets, you need the COCO, because what happened historically, if you see, first we opened our COCO in Calcutta, and then only our franchisee growth came. So to penetrate a market, we have to first open a COCO, exploit the market, see the market, and then only your franchisee demand will come. So you have to be present with a COCO in a particular state, and then only you can expand the franchise. The same thing we have done in South also. We opened stores in Chennai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. After that, the franchisee followed.
Okay. So is there? Do you internally look at any particular number in terms of the ratio of let's say franchisees to COCO stores?
As I have told you that it's I don't know 3:1 or 4:1 every year we open. Last 2 years we are not opening COCO because of this pandemic. But in a normal year we used to open around 20 COCOs and around 70 to 75 franchises.
Okay.
So there is a mix of both the things.
Okay. Fine. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you may press star and 1 to ask a question now. The next question is from the line of Nikita from Galaxy Investment. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Pardon me if someone has already asked this question. One, I want to ask that, see, in last 3-4 years, we have seen a lot of events happening, starting from demonetization to the introduction of GST and now COVID. So what we have seen is various unorganized players were forced to leave the market. So from point of view of unorganized players, how are you seeing the competitive intensity differentiating pre all these events and now?
So competition, I mean, the competition is definitely there. If you see a lot of the unorganized players' business has been converted to distribution business. That's why you're seeing a lot of the distribution players doing so well, and distribution business also doing so well. Be it in terms of Relaxo, there's Aqualite, there is Action, there's Paragon, VKC, there's Khadim, so we are all. I think we are the only unique brand which I think are able to dabble between retail and distribution decently well now. But a lot of the distribution players are getting the benefit of the unorganized to the organized market, and that's why you're seeing the kind of business improvement there.
And another thing is that in terms of GST and Notebandi, there was a limit of 1.5 crore in GST. So unorganized player was less than 1.5 crore. So that GST doesn't impacted them. And in terms of notes also, unorganized can carry on with the new notes also. The thing that has impacted them is this COVID, but that benefit has not passed to the organized sector because the organized sector footfall has also gone down. So once after the COVID, when the impact goes off, the unorganized players are means gone off, then only you can see the benefit.
Okay. And second is all these local brands, like local as in the e-commerce I'm talking about, all the private e-commerce brands like Reliance has its own brand, Big Bazaar has its own brand. So how is the competition from those brands? And if I talk about the quality, how your product is different from those?
So I think, a lot of the brands are trying to dabble in private label, and I think we wish them all the best, because it's always good to have a healthy competition. But I think our strength, to be frank, has been the kind of product and the price point that we are dealing in. I've not seen a lot of other brands being able to provide the kind of variety that we are providing at the kind of price points that we are providing. As I said in my calls earlier, a good branded pair of men's loafers, if you're going for $9.99, you don't find too many options of that. Yes, in the unorganized market you may find, unbranded you may find, and organized and a branded player, very limited options. A leather pair of formal men's shoe, which we are able to sell it at almost $11.99 today. You won't find too many brands being able to do that. So, and not only the men's side, and the women's side as well. We've got a very good range, starting from almost $399, $499, ending at approximately 300 rupees. A lot of the brands, the starting price point is approximately at $999 or $700 or $800. So I think it's the variety. We have almost 1,400 lines, SKUs, and the average, and 80% of our items are below 1,000 rupees, which is our strength. So I've not been able to see the kind of number of brands being able to offer the kind of variety. So I mean, competition is good. It makes us stronger. It makes us try to do better. But I think we've been able to manage, a more affordable fashion footwear across the entire gamut of merchandise categories compared to the other brands.
Thanks so much for answering the question so patiently. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Harish Shah from HS Investment. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. As we have just mentioned right now that you have SKUs at the various attractive price points, and I have noticed that there's a vast product portfolio that you are having right now, which is of a modern and trendy look. So does that mean that we are targeting millennial target group customers?
Hemant, thanks for your question. Really appreciate it, and I think it's a very valid question that you asked. Yes, I think over the multiple calls in the last few quarters, I have been suggesting and reiterating the fact that we are working very hard internally to ensure that we are coming up with a more colorful, vibrant range of products for the younger audience. Because I believe a lot of the 40, 45-year-old plus people, they already know the brand and what we have to offer. And we already have a very strong loyal customer base. What we're trying to do is just trying to, attract the younger crowd of people, and for that we need to ensure we have the right product mix. And we're working very hard. We're investing on people. We're investing in, production. We're investing in vendors to ensure we're able to come up with this kind of range, and we are seeing the change coming in. But we also at the same time are trying to communicate also effectively to the target audience through, our digital media and social media campaigns, that there's more awareness of the kind of change that we're bringing in. I think in the next couple of quarters, we'll possibly update you more in terms of the change we're doing and making in the retail experience. And then possibly it will help you understand better the kind of work that we have been doing. It'll be great if some of you have questions and want to see the kind of change in production. It'll be great. We can host you at our office, and possibly you guys can see the kind of new introductions that we are experimenting with. As we speak, we are conducting a lot of shoe lines. We're doing selections of products which will be ranged and tested, in the next 3-4 months, which will be introduced in the next financial year as well. the next SS20, the Spring Summer 20, Autumn Winter 20, and the Marriage Collection 22. Very sorry. So I think there is a lot of effort going on to make the product range much more younger, relevant, vibrant, and colorful.
Really appreciate. Thanks for your detailed answer. One last question from my side. Could you highlight what is your expansion strategy for the West and the Northern markets?
So I think this year we're looking at the Eastern UP, Western UP, Delhi NCR area. We're looking at MPCG. We're also looking at some parts of Gujarat and Maharashtra. They don't necessarily need to be the metros and the mini metros. They can also be tier 2, tier 3 markets, depending on, we've done an entire micro market exercise where we have listed, the various, state-wise, city-wise, micro market-wise, where the potential market is present, and what are the other brands, which are the other brands in those markets, and where we would be positioned well enough. I don't think we are intending to be a very high fashion mall kind of a brand. I think we intend to stick to our core, which is affordable fashion footwear, and for that we intend to be in a high street market. So that can range from tier 1 to tier 3, wherever that we are getting a commercially viable market across the states that I mentioned. And besides the newer market, as I mentioned too, our existing markets in the eastern side, which is Bihar, the Seven Sisters, Bengal, Orissa, and the southern markets are always there. So we get a lot of incoming interest, and also we are using a lot of the other platforms, offline and online platforms, to garner interest for franchise expansion.
Okay. So any number of stores, like any ballpark numbers, if you can share the number of stores that you would be coming with?
So the target is around 75 to 80 stores.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naitik Modi from Moetum Portfolio. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Namrata, with respect to the product portfolio that you have, there's a view that, or at least I also think sometimes that it is too large a portfolio, and then there are probably too many brands that you guys are dealing with. So has this been sort of an impediment or a deterrent for your growth? Also, is there a brand within our portfolio which is not doing well for us, and we are looking at, doing away with it? Is that something in the pipeline?
I think thanks for your interest and your question. I think, see, the sub-brands that we have, there are many private labels, but I think the way we have positioned each of the sub-brands is focusing on different merchandise categories. For example, Khadim, which is a mother brand, is basic, the basic footwear, which also, because we are making, the entire range a little more, fancier. Even Khadim, the mother brand, is becoming a little more fancier. And the price range for that is ranging from like $299 to like $699, $799. That's the mother brand Khadim. The Clio is very high fashion for the women. It ranges from $699 to approximately $1199, $1299. Sharing, we are positioning very strongly as a brand for the working woman. So we have the range, flats to heels to stilettos to, wedges for the working women. You have Lazard, which is for the younger man, which is like loafers, moccasins, sandals, chappals, some formal shoes for like the age group of approximately 18 to like 30 odd years. Soft touch is for a very comfort footwear. For the women and men whose main focus is comfort, but at the same time we're trying to make that also a little more fashion driven. British Walker is handcrafted, leather footwear for the working man. Pro is sportswear, which is also growing very well as a category. Turk is a brand which is for the outdoor, more rugged and hard-on shoes. those shoes may be, that category may have had the maximum impact in this during the COVID time because of the lack of opportunities of going out. But I think this category also is a decent category, which is also growing year on year basis. Every category, every brand is focusing on a particular use case, and it is also the price points are defined accordingly. So I think that the private labels help to define product range much better. I don't see it as an impediment. In fact, I see it as an opportunity. I think if the sub-brands do well, and in the future in terms of becoming larger or almost equivalent to Khadim, you can definitely explore them as a focused brand as well. So I think it's definitely a plus point to have sub-brands for a differentiating factor. Otherwise, to have Khadims across all the products becomes a bit repetitive and monotonous and doesn't have any differentiating factor.
Appreciate, but how would you rate yourself internally in terms of communicating the ethos or the features or characteristics of these various brands that you explained to me? Do you think that there is a lot more needs to be done in terms of communicating to your target customers?
I think our loyal customers know the difference in the product. So anyway, many of our loyal customers will come and they'll ask for Sharon, they'll ask for British Walker, they'll ask for Lazard. It's the same thing like, you go to, a website, you'll ask for Luna Blue, which is their shoe category of product. I don't think they promoted it ever externally, but I think their products have been so good that people go and ask for the product. Similarly, walk into a Bata store, you'll find a Marie Claire or Naturalizer or Hush Puppies, which historically they're not really promoted differently, but because if you're a regular customer into Bata, you will know the difference between what a Marie Claire or a Naturalizer or a Dr. Scholl's or a Hush Puppies is.
Okay. But wouldn't that be sort of a limitation in terms of the loyalty, or rather the loyal customers being concentrated, let's say, in the eastern region, which may not be the case with your newer regions where you are diversifying?
Yes, so I think the loyal customer, we will start developing a loyal customer base in the newer markets as and when we go over there. And people will get to know what the differentiation in brand, because that's what our sales staff also is trained to explain to the customers what the differentiation between the various sub-brands is. So I think it's the communication that matters, and we are also using digital media effectively to be able to communicate the difference in the various sub-brands as well. But the larger focus is to promote Khadims, is not to promote the sub-brands on social media, but internally the customers very well know the differentiation between sub-brands, as in loyal customers. And the newer markets, I'm sure that our product range, if it clicks very well, which we are very hopeful and confident, we'll create a very strong base of a new loyal customer who will know the differentiation.
Okay, and is there one or are there any more than one?
And also and maybe just to also add, in our stores there is the branding differentiation between all the sub-brands. Means there are placards and there are proper branding for all the sub-brands, and there's also an explanation given for all of them. Each of the tags of the sub-brands also explain what the product stands for and the category stands for, and what is the offering that we are getting. So in the store there is enough explanation for the sub-brands.
Okay, great. Now my question was, apart from Khadim, are there any emerging brands which are really growing well and they also stand out in terms of the sales numbers?
So I think
which you might want to promote as a separate brand, let's say something like what Hush Puppies has its own store. So is there something that we have internally?
So I think Pro is doing well, British Walkers is doing well, Lazard is doing well. I think it's a bit premature for us to get into sub-brand stores right now. To be fair, Hush Puppies has become a large enough brand in itself to be able to become a separate store, and it was also helping in increasing expansion for Bata as an organization. For us right now, Khadim itself as a branded store, we have enough place for penetration left across the country. So let us expand with Khadim, and then possibly we can look at expanding with sub-brands.
Sorry to interrupt. May I request Mr. Modi to please rejoin the queue? We have participants waiting for their turn.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Akanksha from Bharti AXA Life Insurance. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, what are the challenges that you are anticipating in while expanding into the newer markets? And are there any plans to expand inorganically?
I think the challenge maybe is purely in terms of the brand awareness. But having said that, I think the kind of sales that we get when once the store opens is very, very comforting to all of us internally. Purely, it's a function of the brand offering and the product offering. Today, if you have an option when you're getting entire range of products which are 1,000 rupees and plus in a particular store, and when a store opens, and you get to know that there are products available at a much fashionable range at a much lower price point, the word of mouth spreads very well, and I think we get very good response from the customers itself. So I think our brand and our product speaks for ourselves very, very strongly in the market that we open. In fact, we have noticed if we have a standalone store and a competitive brand open next to our store, many a times we'll see our store sales improve, because the logic for that is that it becomes a very strong comparative कि बहुत उधर ये price पे product मिल रहा है, इधर ये price पे ये product मिल रहा है. So I think they realize that the differentiation in product and the product offering is extremely good, and our sales really improve. So I'm not really worried, and I think the challenges over time will reduce because of our expansion is aggressive, and I think there will be more brand awareness coming in. And having said that, because of we have 700 plus stores across the country, so there is a lot of awareness of the brand, in the minds of the who may have come to the eastern southern part of the country and know the brand. So then they walk in and possibly have a good experience. So I think that is, I'm very confident of that changing from a challenge to a strength. Sorry, your second question, ma'am, Akanksha, was?
Are there any plans to expand inorganically?
As of now, no, yeah. I don't think we don't have such plans right now. I think we want to ensure that we are growing and expanding Khadim Ganji very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as this was the last question for today, I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Girish Pai for closing comments.
With that, we come to the end of this interaction with Khadim management. Would like to thank it for giving us this opportunity to host this call. Thank you all for taking part and have a good day. Any closing comments from the Khadim team?
Thank you for your time and your interest in the organization. We are working very hard internally to ensure that we are able to live up to the brand expectation and deliver value to stakeholders connected to the organization, and we hope to be in touch with all of you on a regular basis, and please feel free to reach out to us in case of any questions and clarifications, and we are also happy to host you guys in our office and showcase our entire range of products to you on a regular basis. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Nirmal Bang Equities, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.